All right. All right. I think I'm live now. You never know. It'll catch you off guard here with Facebook Live. But hey, this is my monthly mentoring session. Make sure I have everything set up. Okay. I'm pretty sure I'm live. Okay, cool. It always catches me off guard. But hey, I'm Ryan Payne. This is my monthly mentoring session. Every month, take your questions, answer them, and just break down for you my experiences. Just to give you a quick background, if you don't know who I am, I run a wealth management firm out of New York City and Philadelphia. I built my business from the ground up. So anything about business building, anything about investing, I'm happy to answer your questions and happy to give you some guidance to my best of my ability. So having said that, I got some great questions this month. Let's get right into them and solve some problems. So let me get this up here and let's talk. All right. So the first question that comes in is from Robin Burpin. Robin, always good to hear from you. She writes in, when starting a business, do you think it's necessary to have a social media presence? Thank you. A little business description is Robin does in-person interactions. Actually, background description, totally screwing this up, is in-person interactions are much more comfortable for me. Okay, so this is why instead of social media, I rather the personal interaction. So I get that. And the elevator pitch is, as an artist, I help people feel moments of calm through my oil paintings and sunsets, which I've seen some of your art. It's really, really cool, by the way. So check out Rob's art if you haven't already. But no, I think social media, especially as an artist right now, I think it's crazy not to be adapting to social media. Basically, the world's changed a lot. It's sped up a lot of things, the way we get information, and obviously the whole phenomenon of this virtual world that we live in that started last year because of the pandemic. It's not going away from an advertising perspective, and I think you're doing anything artistic. And my firm, which is like not artistic at all, we're a wealth management firm. We are trying to make a more artistic type of content out there to get people's attention, to get awareness of our firm. And I can tell you that is a huge game changer for a business. And I know because I'm kind of a Luddite. Like I was probably one of the late adapters when it comes to some of these technology platforms. I've talked about this before. We have an old school radio show. And from a marketing perspective, we've done a lot of old school things, but we've adapted and we're learning more about Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and now there's TikTok. And on top of that, there's this new platform, Clubhouse. So there's so many different platforms. And I suspect as an artist, Instagram is probably a great place to be. But getting people aware of what you're doing online is just so critical. And you can limit it. You don't have to feel like, oh my God, my whole life now is going to be like doing tweets or posting. I would just commit it to regular posts, some way, somehow, and just getting familiar with the technology. Because really, if you're not in the social media game with your advertising in the future, like you're going to miss the boat. Like there's no way around it. Like I actually regret I didn't jump on these trends even earlier. Now I don't feel like it's like too late, but you've got to immerse yourself in anything I think social media related, understand it, especially from an advertising perspective. And there's so many stories of people that have sold their art online that have really blown up. Like I'll give you an example. My colleague, her sister, all she does is watercolors of people's dogs. Like they'll send her pictures of their dogs and then she'll do like a watercolor version of it. They're beautiful paintings. And it went viral because she does it on Instagram. She puts all her art on Instagram. That's how people found her. And that's how this little business actually blew up into something bigger. So, if you're not hearing what I'm saying, which I think you are, is that would absolutely start to get online if you're not already. I think it's just like pertinent. And it's one of these, it's hard because we get older and we get kind of entrenched in the way we do things. And weirdly, in a way, it's almost like the same thing as building the skill set of like, it used to be a big thing for me personally in my business to do networking events. And I hate networking events, but you'd have to get really good at going up to people, shaking their hand, getting the card, building rapport, and following up. It's like a whole art and science to that. This is the same kind of thing. It's not like, oh, am I better at this type of social interaction versus this? It's just a different platform. And you need to train your brain on essentially like, how do I communicate in this platform? How does it work? All the nuances that come with it. So I wouldn't think of yourself as I'm a people person versus a social media person. I just think they're like nuanced differences in skill set that, like anything else, people skills are a skill. Social skills are a skill. Social media skills. It's skills you can learn and you can build on. So I'm pretty adamant about it right now just because we're doing so much social media that, Robin, I think you've got to join the charge. So that's my last word on it. Get on it. I want to see all of your oil paintings up on Instagram. I'm going to like every single one of them. So I think it's a good start. Okay, cool. Next question comes in from Bob Gaguerre. I think I'm pronouncing your name correctly. He writes in, do I use one LLC for everything or have separate LLCs for different products and services? So let's give a little background here. I'm about to launch my company. I need to file my LLC. However, I anticipate I will have at least one or two other unrelated product companies that I will test this year. Should I file as a parent company LLC? What point in the business development lifecycle should a LLC be filed? And elevator pitch is Expert SAT Math is a membership-based website. This obviously is presumably your business, which help high school students realize their goals, dreams through mindset and incentivize-based SAT math prep. Well, I sure could have used some incentives when it came to math for me when I was doing the SATs because I was terrible at it, but I do admire that. I actually did have my accountant look at this, and I'm going to bring up his recommendation because I thought I had it written here, but I don't. But let's just take a quick look at that because that is a good question. And I don't want to take up too much time looking for this, but I did have an answer on that question specifically. Of course, it's not right at my disposal. We're going to find it. Okay, so basically based on his recommendation, again, this is not knowing all the details, I'll cat that out there, but this will at least give you some guidelines for what you should do. But his recommendation is based on no facts. He recommends a single-member limited liability corporation be formed for each product. Your client should own them. You should own them personally. You can always combine the SM LLCs, or again, single-member limited liability corps, down the road. An LLC should be formed when you have a liability, contracts, employees, revenue, substantial expenses, many factors come into play. So it sounds like you want to wait to have like a really formed business and then set up an LLC for that specific business as opposed to rolling it all under one initially. Later on, you may want to do that. But as a starter, based on my accountant's recommendation, I would not do that. So, hello, everybody, by the way. Get it, Ryan. Oh, yeah. Robin, James, Honey, Shirley, just saying hello. So you guys are all on today, which is great. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, cool. So we've got that going, that question. So that hopefully gives you a little bit of an idea how to structure those businesses as you get started. Next question comes in from Ari Brown. Ari writes in, how do you fire a client when your only basis is they're difficult and not willing to change? This is a damn good question, by the way. I've been here. So a little background description from Ari. She's a CA. I was hired just to clean up the QuickBooks, and they insist on doing it themselves going forward after the cleanup, and they undo the entire cleanup. And it's like talking to a brick wall when you try to explain anything to them about QuickBooks for any accounting concepts. Mine and my bookkeeper's fear is that because she's local, she's just going to post like some negative review and she's the one that screwed up everything we did if we let them go and just don't fix again for free. Okay, so I don't know exactly where you are in this relationship. Are you at the point now where they feel like you've not done a good job for them? Or is it kind of like, okay, you did what you're going to do. Now they've totally redone the books the way they're going to do it. And you haven't come to that inflection point where they're like, whoa, we screwed up here, but I'm going to blame it on you. Because I think that would be clear where that is in the relationship. If it's not there yet, I think all's fair in love and war. It's like, you're hoping clients hire you, but it's a two-way street, right? It's not just about essentially you being hired by them, but also your choice to work with them as well. And sometimes we forget that because we just want to grow and we want to get more business. And this does remind me, I had a client like this, just a pain in the neck, did a great job for him, complained. He actually took some business away from me. It wasn't my fault. And I still had an account that I could manage with him because I'm in the money management business. And I decided I didn't like working with him. His expectations were unrealistic. It was unfair that he took some business away from me because of blaming me for something that I didn't do. And of course, I'm thinking like you're thinking. I'm like, okay, if I'm blamed here for something that wasn't even my mistake down the line, what if I do screw up on something or something doesn't go right? I'm clearly going to be at fault here. So I think the way to do it in a polite way is always flatter the person, and say something along the lines of like, "Hey, look, you're running a great business. I love what you've done. I think you're on the great track. Be very complimentary. I just feel at this point that our services we're providing, really aren't in lines with what you need or what you want to do. Don't make it just like kind of a conflict of interest. Like, I feel like the advice I'm giving you, essentially, it's not worth it if you're not taking my advice to lever the law, which I respect, but I feel guilty. Here's the key right here, Ari. I feel guilty charging you a fee when we're not really implementing my plan. And I just feel like at this point, that's not really fair to you. So always put it on them as their benefit, is in my mind, is the way that I would do that. So instead of being like, I can't work with you, blah, 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 just say, hey, look, I think it's wrong. I'm charging you a fee because you're not really implementing these processes, and that's not fair to you. So I would always do it in the sense that it's a benefit for them, that you love working with them, like great to work with them and be very complimentary of what they're doing with their business, but just let them know. And even put in a follow-up email to them, CIA, like, hey, I just felt like these are the way things are going to get done. You're doing them this way, which is fine. But philosophically, that's not the way we do it. So I feel bad charging you a fee here. We're not going to implement this. It's you're wasting your money. And I don't want to waste your money. That's not really fair. And I think we should have a fair business practice here where like you're paying me for my advice and taking it. If not, that's great. But like, don't let me charge you for that. So I think that's the mindset. Like, the dream always is those people actually fire you, but if they're not going to do it, to me, that's my second tactic. Because ideally, sometimes you'll just get fired and you'll be relieved because you're like, oh. And then you'll be like, oh, I really want you to stay. I feel so bad, obviously, but best of luck. Meanwhile, inside, you're like, yes, I couldn't deal with this person anymore. That was brutal. So think from that perspective, then just take the high ground, be very complimentary, and let them know you're doing them a service because, again, you don't feel like it's fair for you to charge them a fee if they're not taking the advice. Bam. Let me know if you have other questions on it. I think that is a very nuanced situation and you want to do it correctly. And you can just like put a note in the video section of the comment section here, and I'll happily get back to you on that. But I feel that's like a very critical situation. We've got to handle it right because your reputation is everything. But I always want to do it in a way where you're like uplifting the other person and you're trying to do them all the favors in the world because they're the most important person, and you're here just trying to facilitate that. I think that's a very important mindset to have when you're dealing with situations like that. So, again, but hit me up if you have any other questions on that. Okay, we're moving and grooving as always. Heather Brockman, always good to hear from you, Heather. Heather writes in, what are some of the best stocks to invest in right now? Is it a good time to be putting money in stock market? All right. And background of the question here is I'm looking to start investing money and diversifying my portfolio low risk, but really don't know where to start. Looking for advice and guidance in this new venture. And just a little bit of an elevator pitch on what Heather does. She offers high-end holistic grooming experiences for busy pet owners who animals are part of the family. So, which is a very cool niche, by the way. Okay, so when it comes to investing, I think the first rule of thumb with stock market is it's a long-term investment. Now, the market has been very hot lately. It's going up like every single day. We're in what you call proverbial booming bull market, which is great, but they don't last forever. And unfortunately, my crystal ball broke 20 years ago when I got into business. I can't tell you the magical day when the market's going to stop going down. Okay. But what you want to start thinking about if you're trying to build wealth in stocks, which is a great way to build wealth. It's like you're buying companies, you're buying shares of companies that you're an owner of that trade publicly. And the whole idea is you're owning them over longer periods of time, and basically as they prosper over time, you prosper as well. So the first thing that you want to think about as a mindset, the perspective you want to have, is you want to own stocks long term. Stocks are going to be very volatile. They go up, down a lot in the short term. So the real value of owning stocks is not getting like instant win or instant return, is to say, hey, I'm going to own this for the next 5-10 years plus. My rule of thumb is with stocks, my earliest time horizon, let me put it that way, would be 5 years. Anything below 5 years, you really don't know. Stocks could be up in 5 years, they could be down, but I always think a 5-year window is a good rule of thumb. As long as you know you're going to hold for 5 years plus, I think stocks are a great investment. Now, there's a lot of ways to invest your money, and it's very, very overwhelming. But just as a starter, things I would think about are diversification. It's an overused term in my industry, but that means I wouldn't buy individual stocks, because then it's like you're trying to do analysis on companies that you think are great, but we all run businesses. We all know our businesses are not infallible. At some point, I don't care if you're Amazon or you're my little business, Ryan Payne Capital Management, marketplaces change. People running companies change. And any one stock could go to zero. Any business can go bankrupt. You know this with your own business. Think about behind the scenes, the chaos, even though it may look smooth as silk to your customers. And we see that when we see big businesses like an Amazon, Facebook, like, oh my God, these businesses just make money hand over fist. Well, marketplaces change. Look at ExxonMobil, for instance. It was the largest company in the U.S. just over a decade ago. Now it's one of the smaller companies, of publicly traded companies, because all of a sudden energy prices went from 100 down to a negative price last year. Because all of a sudden they had things like fracking, that created more supply to the market. But my point is marketplaces change. I'm getting wonky here. Anything can happen to any given stock. So going back to my main point, you don't want to just own one or two companies. If you own a fund, an exchange-traded fund, which would have hundreds of stock that you're invested over, you mitigate a lot of your risk long-term. So that's the first place I would start. Now, this is probably a much longer conversation, but I think the market is always a good place to invest long-term as long as you have a 5-year time horizon. And I would look at buying what we would call just a whole group of stocks or a fund of stocks, as opposed to just picking a couple individual names that you like, because it sounds like common sense. Well, I like the stock. I use their services. I like go to Disney World. I buy Disney stock. I'd stay away from that, and I'd buy a whole diversified portfolio of stocks. Okay. If you want to talk about that a little bit further, because I feel like this is a hard question to answer in a very short format like this, just put a comment in the comment section of this Facebook Live, and I can help you think about it maybe a little bit further, because the other thing you want to think about as a business owner is tax benefits as well. Depending if you have independent contractors, you're a sole proprietor, you can put money away pre-tax into a retirement plan as well. So not only do you grow your money in the stock market, but you do it with tax advantages. There's things like a Roth IRA where you can't touch the money till you're at least 59 and a half, but you're going to be able to grow that money and take it out completely tax-free. So that's another thing you want to think about when you're building a portfolio. And anyone watching this right now, or who's going to watch this later, you have a lot of advantages as a business owner to get money away pre-tax. And, I have a saying in my business, it's not what you make, it's what you take. So it's not only about getting a return on your money, but it's the best return with the least amount of tax. So a lot of times you can get a lower returning investment, but because you pay very little tax on it, it ends up being more money in your pocket than maybe some hot IPO you could buy that goes to the moon, as they say nowadays, that you end up selling in a couple months and you pay lots of taxes on it. You may end up with a less return. So I think about taxes, diversification, look at exchange-traded funds, which kind of narrows it down a little bit, but then you may want to think about okay, what indexes or exchange-traded funds do I buy? And I can actually talk to you a little bit more about that. If you want to put a comment in the comment section here, we can talk about that, because I think that's literally the whole conversation. Okay, well, thank you for the question. Good question. And yes, the stock market is a great place to build wealth long-term, not short-term. Who knows what's going to happen short-term? I wish I knew. My man Gabor writes in, what are some quick wins I can implement to increase our bottom line profitability? And how should I go about doing this in the long term? Okay, this is a good question. A little background here too. From Gabor, throughout the past 2 years, I've been focused on growing our top line revenue, and this is where this year we're on track to hit $1 million in sales. Congratulations, that's fantastic. We've been profitable all the way. But I feel there's probably a lot of waste we could eliminate. Normally I'm the sales guy, not the savings guy. So I'm not sure how to get started, as well as how to make constant awareness of our bottom line as an integral part of how we do business. We currently have a full-time accountant who can get me reports when I need them. Okay, well, I think the first thing that really speaks to me is you made a good comment here. You made this comment, I'm a sales guy, not a savings guy. And I'm glad you're aware of that because it's two different roles. Like in my business, I'm definitely the very big picture. I hate the minutia of detail. I hate knowing how the sausage is made, okay? And you probably are the same way. I think salespeople inherently, and this is a generalization to some extent, don't like details. They like to sell the dream, the big picture, the macro picture. And a lot of times when you're entrepreneurial and you're the leader, a lot of times it's about that more visionary role, right? Where you're seeing kind of like the picture, but the devil's in the details. And a lot of times when we're more entrepreneurial, we hate to get into like all the little nuts and bolts of how things have to get done. So having said, and I don't know how your business is structured, but maybe your accountant or somebody who's more of an operational type person in your organization can actually be the one to do the cost cutting or look at where there can be efficiencies in the cost. And you should always do this, by the way. Everyone who's watching this, think about your business always from the perspective of, A, you want to reinvest to grow. That's critical. And I invest way too much money to grow. Probably not getting the ROI I should on my business, by the way. But I'm always looking at the cost structure. So 2 points on that. Number one, I have an operations person. I have someone who just loves operations. They love getting into the details. They hate the big picture. They want to know about like how everything can run more efficiently. Like they're obsessed with it. That's the person you want to go through your books and look at what efficiencies can be built in where you can save a lot. In some cases, get rid of people that you don't need. And I'm very lucky. I did this about a year before the pandemic hit. I took a woman in my organization who loves being organized, who loves the minutia of detail, and basically said, you're going to run operations. You are the most organized person I know, and I am not. You're going to run it. And literally within that year, we transformed. We sadly we've actually let 2 people go that were just kind of hanging around. And ironically, we were more efficient without them. And we did all these things pre-COVID. So when COVID hit, we had our expenses on lockdown because we were proactive about it. We weren't reactive about it. And again, that's kind of like, this is always something that you got to be like sharpening the sword, right? You can't just essentially like cut costs once and forget about it. So working document, you got to constantly be looking at your costs. So the second point on that I wanted to make is you have an accountant that's great. My accountant runs for me, or my bookkeeper more accurately, runs every quarter, runs me a one-pager. On one page, I can see all the revenue coming in, and line by line, I can see all the expenses going out. As a business owner, you got to have this. I don't like detail, but I force myself to actually go through it and just look at our profitability every single quarter. So I can see where we're spending money, and I can see where our costs are going up, going down. It's just a scorecard, and I can get an idea where my margins are every 3 months, which is huge, by the way. And the other recommendation my accountant gave me many years ago is, and I don't know how you run your business from an invoice perspective or where most of your expenses go. Ours mainly go on an American Express card. We have checks go out too, but I'd say like 80% of our expenses are the American Express. He told me once, always go through your credit card expenses once a month. And he told me a horror story one time about an employee of a company that was his client that stole like hundreds of thousands of dollars because they didn't take the time to watch the expenses. And then they had to sue them. And of course, the money was already spent and never get the money back. So the other habit I would get into as a business owner, and I've been doing this for a year now, even as we grow, even as we're on the cusp of being like, a 7-figure a year business. I think 7, maybe 8 figures now. 8-figure year business, is I go through the credit card statement every single month. I go line by line. It takes me like 20 minutes. And you can see there's like any like ancillary costs that shouldn't be there. Why do we spend money on this? But you've got to have that control of your business. You don't have to be a micromanager, but you've got to have you have to have a general picture of what expenses look like, what your profit margins look like. And then you can always improve from there and then get somebody who's good at that to fine tune it and actually go through and clean a lot of stuff up for you, because you don't want to get too in the weeds. You just want to have, the forest as opposed to looking between the trees of like what's going on big picture. So 2 really good habits to get into. which I totally recommend that you adapt. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. Next question comes in from Robin Turpin. Always good to hear from you, Robin. Time management. Ooh, we all suffer from this. What time management system or process do you use and why? I want to be as productive as I can be, and I know there's software and a good old-fashioned day planner. Nothing wrong with that. What are you using today to stay efficient and manage your time? Thanks so much. Okay. I love anything time management because I'm obsessed with it. And I'm not the best at it, but I've gotten better over the years. And a couple things that I do like that you may want to apply to your business. Number one is, and maybe a lot of you have this already, is you want to have some sort of like web-based calendar where your calendar can be seen by yourself and all your colleagues if you have colleagues. So everybody can see what everyone's calendar looks like for booking appointments, when you're in and out of meetings. So I think having that kind of like cloud-based type of approach to an overall planner of where you're going to be every day is good for your colleagues to know, your subordinates to know, so everybody kind of knows what your schedule looks like. And that gives you a lot of power too, because what you might want to do, like me, what I do more of, which is inspiring me as I'm telling you this, is I need to put more block time on my calendar, like when I don't want to be disturbed. Like towards the day when I want to work on projects and stuff like that, you can put it on your calendar. You can actually fill it in like Robin's an appointment. That could be an appointment with yourself. But if you block off time on your calendar that people can't schedule, it's perfect because it gives you a little more control of your calendar. People know when you're available, not available, and basically it's in a very organized manner that everybody can basically see. So you're not like some secretive world. Because like I literally don't turn my phone on during the day. If someone really needs me, unless it's a scheduled call that I'm on, basically like I'm not calling anybody back right away. Which also, this is going to go into a more deep topic, but I try to keep them high level. And this is something I've been trying to do, which let me get a little more comfortable here, that I'm trying to get better at, which I think everyone should think about applying as well, is we get so many distractions during the day. And I'm reading a book called Deep Work right now. It's really good. I recommend anyone who's an entrepreneur read it as well, because it just talks about how distracted we get with social media, email. We're in the age of being knowledge workers. And it's not like when we used to just go to the factory, put a time card in, go to work, take our time card, get out, see our productivity, good day's work, go drink a beer, have a steak, wash, rinse, repeat, whatever. We don't live in that type of world anymore. It's a little more intangible, right? We're dealing with everything is in the cloud. We don't necessarily clock in and clock out, especially as a business owner. Forget it. And with COVID, it's like the lines have been blurred further, right? Like how many times you just like go back to work because you're right here in your apartment, or I'm saying my apartment, I live in New York, in your home. Whereas when you went to the office, there was more of a delineation between when I work and when I don't work. So I think you have to have a lot more boundaries in place with what you're doing now. So what I've tried to do, and I'm doing more of, actually inspired by this book I read, Deep Work, which I recommend you read, is get your customers, clients in the habit of you not responding right away to anything. My rule is I respond within 24 hours. So I never train my clients to think that they can just call me, text me, and I get right back to them. And this is so crazy, and I shouldn't even say it, but it's true. Like I put all my emails on delay a lot of times. So if I'm responding to all my emails, I don't want to get people in the habit of me like responding right away. I'll put on delay for like late in the evening where I know responses are not going to come right back. Because the problem with email, the more you send, the more you get back. So I think what you need to do is you need to block time. What I'm trying to do now is I literally turn my email off for hours at a time so I can focus on what I need to focus on, the task at hand, because those distractions really mess with your brain and your ability to focus. So the other part to this, and I hope I'm not rambling too much, is I'm old school. I make a list every night, this is no bullshit, of what I'm going to do the next day. And this takes precedent over everything else. So as I'm talking to you, like 12 o'clock is my Facebook Live, my email is not on. I actually had to turn my email on to answer that one question earlier in the Zoom call here. So I practice what I preach. Facebook Live rather than Zoom call. And basically, I think that's a really important thing. So like sticking to this very, very plain vanilla list, there's a tangible feeling of like crossing off your work, going to the factory, clocking in, and making that your priority. And then checking your email maybe at like noon and again at 4. So anything you need to deal with like right there and then, you can deal with it. And then I recommend just dealing with your email in blocks, like 12 o'clock, take 30, 40 minutes, go through all your email. Again, put a lot of your emails on delay so that way they're not just all coming back, and train people to know that you're just not there at a minute's response. Now, if you're in a service business like I am, my rule is 24 hours. But you got to put boundaries around your time, because the way I look at it too is like, why should I have to respond right away? Theoretically, I could be in a meeting. And even if you're on your block time working on things over here, well, that's the same thing as being in a meeting. And I think people understand that, because like if I'm in the meeting with a client, I'm not checking my phone doing other things. So if one of my clients calls me and I'm not available or I'm not responding right away, well, presumably I'm in a meeting or doing something else. Like I wouldn't be rude during their time when we're talking. They just assume, I'm talking in a meeting with somebody else. I'm not being rude, checking my email and doing other things. So I guess what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way is it's like very acceptable. And we don't do enough in society to like respond to things later. So again, block off maybe once, twice a day, do your email, that's it. Put a lot of it on delay, so it's not like all of a sudden these responses are coming right back. Unless it's urgent, important, you have to take care of it. Keeps you abreast of anything that urgently has to be taken care of, and make this list your paramount thing. These are things you have to get done that day. And what I do at the end of the day is I cross off, what I don't, I move it to the next day or whatever, and I make another list for the next day. So that's how I've been able to do my time management, which has been very, very effective, but I'm trying to take it to that next level, again, where I'm trying to eliminate distractions. Like in other rules, like I've made it for myself, because now we're doing social media. You want to know like what kind of responses you're getting. Like I'm doing YouTube videos. I want to know how many people are watching my videos. Same thing. Only give yourself like certain times when you can actually check those things and make it like a little bit of downtime. For me, social media, it's at 4:30. 4:30, I can go through my Facebook, my Twitter, Instagram, the list goes on, YouTube, respond to anything. And you'll be amazed too, when you wait that long, you're like, oh, it's not that big a deal. I don't really get that many things coming in anyway. It feels like it's more urgent when you check in every half hour and you see like a new red indication or notification on the upper right hand of your screen. The dopamine kicks in. You're like, oh my God, let me see. But when you wait and let them build up all day, it's like, it's not that big a deal. And you get through it in like 15, 20 minutes. And you're like, damn. So, okay, that was very long-winded, but I think that's actually a really good topic. And that's something I'm working on this year. It's like a paramount for me. And I think everybody who is a business owner should be literally ruthless with their time. You got to constantly analyze it. You got to constantly look at tricks of the trade you can use to limit distraction so you can stay very, very razor focused on those 10, 15 things that you need to get done every day. So, done. That's what I have to say about that. Okay, we're moving and grooving here. Next question. All right. Yes. Okay, you guys, I'm in here. Yes, I'm a pen and paper person. Just got a planner. That's great. I'm going to read some of these. So everyone's dealing with this. In COVID, it's worse. So you've got to get more militant with your organization skills. Like, it's crazy. Okay, next question and the last question. Great questions today, by the way. This is hot stuff to talk about. Is from Sarah Hamilton. She writes in, how do I build loyalty with my team? Great question. Okay, background. I own a female-run and operated barbershop. We have male clients. And over the years, I have countless barbers screw me over in all kinds of areas. The way they talk to me, the way they won't follow processes. They've quit on me, and I can't seem to find a solution. The industry is very unique, and I'm looking for any and all ideas to make sure that I'm being the right leader to people and grow. How do I know if I'm the problem, if I'm not doing my job right, or it's just the people, or people being people? Okay. Wow. Let's unpack this. There's a lot going on here, and this is a great question. And I think it's something that like we all need to deal with, right? And business is all about the people you work with. And it's a little bit of all things. You might not be hiring a lot of the right people for sure. I think that's definitely probably part of this problem. You want to attract the right kind of people, so that's key. And I think you need to. And it sounds like, okay, you've got I've got actually a lot of female employees. It's the opposite. We have male female clients, but a lot, 70% of our firm is women, and a lot of our firm is run by women. And I think that, it's important to do the team building stuff, even though it sounds like it might be cheesy. I don't think it is. You want to get people invested in your process. You've got to have a vision, and you've got to relay that vision. So like we have a kickoff meeting every year, and I put out the vision I have for the firm. What I have as a team collectively, I think that's very, very important. It doesn't have to be anything like splashy. I break it down into like 4 points that are important. You can make it into a Zoom presentation. You can probably get that done and have everyone get together and on that. I don't know what your budget is, but team events are huge. Been hard with COVID, but we have tons of team events coming up this year. Like my team hit a big number 2 years ago, and I'm taking them all to Miami. Now, this would be this big a deal because COVID last year, we didn't go last year, we're going this year. But there's also like team building days where you can do stuff with your team. So I think all those little things are really important. I think COVID's actually screwed it over a little bit because like doing a Zoom call, which you should still do because it's better than nothing. Some sort of events during Zoom calls, or have some of your employees, and you're actually at a barbershop, so people probably are going to work. But doing some sort of team building, whether it's happy hour, anything you can do that builds camaraderie is so important. And team culture, I don't probably need to tell you this, it's always changing. The dynamics are always changing. If you're in a small organization like I have, one person's personality can ruin it for everybody if they're in a bad mood. So I think it's really important that everybody's on board. And if they're not, I think you've got to address it. So, the thing is, you've got to like make sure that, hey, like go out with that person, take them to lunch, just say, hey, I noticed like lately you seem a little bit this way. Is everything cool with you? You've got to address these head on, or they just fester and they grow. So if you're having a problem with an employee, and I know I'm going a little all over the place right now, you've got to address with that person. Also, I think there is something powerful in treating your employees to some extent. Not always, you're not perfect at this. I'm not perfect like this as your client. What are the old saying is, seek to understand to be understood. So I think you have to take the time, and it's hard to do it because we're tired and we're dealing with clients and we're dealing with all sorts of things. But I think it's really, really important to take the time to get to know people that are working with you and really learn who they are. Treat them like a client. Like if you're doing someone's hair, I know those are very personal relationships, right? I talk to my barber, like we joke the whole time. It's a close relationship. And it doesn't have to be that chummy, but like I think you have to like really get to let people know like you care. You do have an interest in their life, and do like little nice things here and there. Like we always do really nice birthday gifts for the people in our organization. We always try to do like celebratory things, and I think all that stuff has to be implemented into your company culture. And there are little things that go a long way. And having little contests, like I said, we have a team trip contest. Doesn't have to be that big. We do an operations person of the month, where all the financial advisors vote on that person, and they get a $150 American Express gift certificate that we just use the points for. But I think all those little things are what build culture, and it's your job as the leader to take an interest in everybody else and not put up with bullshit either. So if someone is off, they're not treating you well or the organization well, that to me is like, we're going to go for coffee. People in my organization know if we're going for coffee, it's never a good thing, by the way. It's like, okay, what's up? And always pose it from the position of like, hey, not like, I can't believe you've been like this, accusatory. Don't do that. Go into the situation more along the lines of like, hey, I noticed that you seem a little agitated lately. Like, what's going on? Because it's the other thing, like, I don't know what's going on personally with people. Like, sometimes maybe their home life is terrible. And maybe it's nothing to do with you that they're treating you badly. That's okay, but find out and just be like, and then again, you're learning about them. So you find out they're having a bad time at home and you give some empathy around that. That's a very powerful connection. But then you can also, it's not all carrot, put the stick in there. Just say, hey, like, I appreciate what's going on with you, and that sucks. I'm here for you for support. But look, this is a small organization. I need you to put your game face on when you come into the office or you come into the barbershop. Like, that's my favorite line. Because we have a small, my train of thought here. We have a small team, And when somebody's off, like I'll just say like, hey, look, I get it. We all have bad days. We all have things going on outside of work. But when we're in the office, I need you to put your game face on. I need you to step it up. I need you to have a positive attitude. I need you to act with enthusiasm, not bring the mood down. And you have problems, I'm here to help you, but like this is what I need from you. But put that at the end. Hear them out first and then put in what you require of them. As long as people are heard and they're understood, it's like then you can give your 2 cents, and it's like gonna come off like what they say, like I don't know, you put 2 breads between, it's like a shit sandwich. It's probably not PC to say it, but you've got to make it digestible so they take your advice or your criticism. So that was a lot, but these are great questions, and I think these are all things that you want to implement. Just to summarize there. So again, like you want to do things as a team leader, team type of events that build camaraderie. You want to take the time to understand those people, know them on a personal level to some extent where they know that you care. And I think you want to have a value system, a goal system that everybody's working towards, because if everybody's working towards the same thing, and this actually goes back to Gabor's question, which I totally forgot about, is that gets people looking at the bottom line too. Like if there's an incentive like, hey guys, I want to do this much in business this year. If we do that, I'm going to do a party. Maybe if you can't afford to take a run to Miami, whatever. But something that's like, oh, people are going to want to know what the numbers are monthly. They start asking you like, hey, where are we with this? If it's like, hey, I want to get our profit margins to here. So if we do it, then I'm going to do this for everybody. Everyone's like, oh, where can we cut costs? You got to get everyone on the same page. You got to have esprit de corps. And I think, it's so important as a leader, this is your job. So it's a hard job and it's a lot of energy, but you can't have a good culture if you don't put into it, invest in it. You've got to invest in it. So, oh my God, I think I'm really wordy today, which is probably not always my MO. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Looks like any questions, I'm just going over in the comment section real quick. Anything else that you guys want to ask before we call it here? I'll give it a second. All right. I feel like we've covered it. Look, as always, really appreciate working with this group. It's great. Doing this is great for me too. It reminds me of things I need to do with my business. Any questions over the month, just submit them. We'll deal with them right here. Any other questions based on what we're talking about today, just comment section of the Facebook Live. I'll go back later and try to answer your questions and try to get a little more detail for you. But I appreciate all of you. Economy reopening. We got way too much money to spend. Apparently, the government's just like throwing cash on us. So let's have a great year. Let's kick ass in our businesses. Let's stay optimistic. Let's stay focused. And, that's what we do. That's what we do here at the Accelerator Forum. So thank you, and we'll talk.